Just for Fred.
There it is. Okay, apologies.
It works.
Thank you. Jody, would it be okay if we continue with this presentation and did the approval minutes again, so it can be on the recording after the presentation? Yes. Okay, is that, Chair Lockhart, would that be acceptable? Yes.
Thank you. So, what's important here is that we maintain the consistency. We also have the issue of risk. If you all allowed somebody to comment longer than they should, like there are some councils, boards and commissions that will say, please go ahead and finish up your thought. One person's finishing up a thought, maybe to literally turn around and go sit down, another person maybe to talk for another 90 seconds. And so we don't do that here. Once you do that for one person, because it's an issue of freedom of speech, you should be allowing every person to do that, at which point in time the 3-minute rule kind of goes away. And so that is just one example of some of the changes. Also being in the council chambers, we're all going to be using the same type of technology and everything. So just trying to recollect my thoughts, pause there. We just want to make certain we have some standardization that helps to define and set expectations for the community. It helps to reduce issues with training. It helps to give us that ability to back one another up, going from board, commission to council, and then it also reduces risk. So sorry for the redundancy. I just wanted to make sure that those summary points were on the recording. Thank you.
Okay. So as I mentioned,
A little bit of a lag, see what it looks like. So as I mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and go through a few sections at a time and then pause for questions, and the mayor will interject when appropriate. So we're going to start with section 1, authority effect in construction. I'm not going to read verbatim. I'm just grabbing some highlights. Hopefully you guys have all read the amazing 17-page document that took me a year to develop. The Monroe City Council established the following procedures for the conduct of city board, commission, committee meetings, proceedings, and business. The rules do supersede and replace any and all rules adopted previously by any BCC. So your previous rules of procedure are now superseded by these. There's a couple asterisks there because civil service and left 1 have very strict rules outlined in RCW. So if their rules differ from these rules, their rules prevail. And then obviously, if there's anything in code, state law, ordinance that conflicts with these rules, those should prevail as well. The rules can be amended or new rules adopted only by a majority vote of city council. Oh, wrong button. Oh, geez, now I'm going crazy. Okay, section 2, respecting the roles and responsibilities, outlines the guidelines for BCC roles and responsibilities that you do and do not have, and the collaboration amongst one another. The 2 highlights that I have here is that all BCCs should reasonably attempt to collaborate as appropriate with other BCCs on topics having crossover relevance or redundancy. And a couple of examples I put in here. If one of the BCCs is discussing a topic that affects downtown businesses, they should strive to collaborate with the EDAB. And if there's discussion about something that could be achieved by a revision in zoning code, then planning commission should be involved. So kind of that cross collaboration there. And then the second thing I highlighted here is that BCC members shall not attempt to influence staff in the selection or direction of personnel, awarding of contracts, selection of consultants, and the processing of development applications for granting city licenses or permits. I will put the caveat in here that if you're authorized by council to provide recommendations on those items, including work plan implementation and funding, then recommending contract awards or consultant selections would be within your purview because the ultimate decision lands with the city council. The staff tip here is that if you or an organization or company you are affiliated with may be seeking an award of a city contract, we want you to notify staff immediately to allow time for legal vetting before any discussion or vote occurs, because you may end up having to recuse yourself from the discussion and or the vote.
Before we move off that staff tip, an additional tip here is that that depending upon the nature of the contract and depending upon your position in the organization, even though from a legal perspective, it may be appropriate for you to stay in the room for deliberation and also for the decision, that it may be the wiser move to not be in the room for deliberation and not be part of the decision when we made. So that gets into sort of an appearance of fairness as opposed to a per se conflict of interest, and you dealing with land use. That would be my recommendation. We've had issues in the past where people have remained in the room during deliberation and then did not vote, and it just caused concern within the community. So just relaying that concern from another situation.
I'm gonna do two more sections, so if you could write down your questions if you have any, or just remember them. Section 3, representing the position of the city. It establishes the rules related to representing the city in an official capacity. So if any member of a city board, commission, or committee is approached by the media in the capacity as a city representative, you need to refer the media to the city administrator and not provide comment within your BCC capacity as a planning commissioner. If you're approached by the media in a non-official capacity, you need to clearly state that the comments you are providing are not a representation of your official position in the city. This also counts for social media. So if you see a post and you want to respond to it, please put the caveat on there that I am responding to this in my personal opinion, not the opinion of me as a planning commissioner.
I'll go ahead and add to that, that there are people that do not separate the two roles. So even though you may try to separate the two roles, some people may not be able to do that. So I would caution commenting on city-related business that connects with your service as a planning commissioner, or actually with the city if you can, on social media as well.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people where they just recommend that the person commenting contact staff.
Yeah.
So. Section 4, confidentiality, establishes the rules related to keeping certain business confidential. Essentially, what happens in executive or closed session stays in executive or closed session, including any papers that are distributed. If you are attending a meeting remotely and you're in an executive session, you need to either be wearing headphones and or make sure that there's nobody else in the room that can overhear the conversation, the Zoom conversation. And then the second piece we are highlighting on this is that when you are communicating about city business in writing, you need to either use your official city email address or ensure that the communication is copied to me at cityclerk@monroe.gov if the email does not already contain another staff member. So if you're communicating and say Leanne or Amy or Anita are already copied on it, you don't need to also copy cityclerk@monroe.gov. But if no other staff member is, then that is the email that you should be copying. If you're not already using your official city email address, and that is in order for us to be able to archive that email and have it discoverable for public records. And I'm going to pause there, Chair, if there are questions, and I know we've had one.
Sure, thank you. So if we've been advised that we should recuse ourselves from the vote due to conflict of interest, do we not need to leave the room, or do we? During the discussion.
You should, usually what we have been advised is that it's also the public perception that if you're, even if you're not doing any discussion, you're just sitting there, you even being in the room could look like you're trying to influence your fellow commissioners
With
about the
public
decision. Exactly. So we recommend that if you need to recuse yourself, then you literally leave the room from the entire discussion and voting.
It's
And
not required.
it depends on the situation. That's why we ask you to notify staff immediately if you think that there might be a conflict of interest.
But if it's been decided that there is a conflict of interest,
Mhm.
are you required to leave the room?
I think it depends on the situation. I literally think it's a case by case basis.
If
I'm
it's
gonna
been decided,
decide, so I'm gonna tell you, you should leave the room.
oh, I agree with
No,
that.
I'm, for the record. I'm going to tell you that if there is a conflict of interest, that you should saying shall leave the room. There will be times where the attorney will say that you must leave the room.
Yes,
And I am simply saying that even if the attorney, for some reason, says it's okay for you to be in the room, you will have people in the community and the council and the mayor, because I'm not gonna be the mayor forever, will have a different opinion of you staying in the room during deliberation when you don't vote, if there is an appearance of fairness or a conflict of interest. So my strong suggestion in my 3 decades of doing this kind of work is to leave the room. Go ahead.
no, I agree with you
Okay.
wholeheartedly. There was a time city council's rules required, and that's why I wanted to clarify that it's required as opposed to should. Those are two different levels of,
I think there's been a change in
I,
standard, and part of that is very much what Jody was just sharing, that some of these things can be very situation specific. And a couple situations that I can think of in more recent history, there were different perspectives of people not being part of the conversation. Just go with that broadly. So, you know, I would say when it comes down to land use, though, there's a higher risk. And so, especially with the planning commission, if there is an appearance of fairness or conflict of interest issue, that for me, the standard would be higher. But again, you would listen to the attorney and so too would the staff. Jody, would you have anything to add to that?
No, I just wholeheartedly, as soon as you think that there is gonna be a conflict, just let your staff member know, and we can work through it together. It's if you show up at a meeting and you're like, I think I might need to recuse myself, but you're like, okay. And you don't have the privilege of being able to get actual legal advice on that situation.
but your, I think, comment, at least in here, is that as soon as you have any suspicion of having a conflict, contact staff to let the, and enough time so attorney can make a judgment and advise you accordingly. The second question I had is out of curiosity, for the planning commission, when do we need to go into executive session?
Probably never, but there's very specific cases where you would go into executive session, so potential litigation is one of them. That's the only one I can think of off the top of my head that planning commission might have to go into exec session about, and I don't know, maybe there's a land use decision that's coming up and our attorney wants to make sure that everybody is very aware of appearance of fairness doctrine issues or anything like that. So that's when I would imagine that you would have to go to, because all the rest of the reasons, sale of property, purchase of property, none of that would be in your decision-making purview anyway, so you wouldn't necessarily need to go in. But we are telling all of our boards and commissions about exec sessions and the you know, OPMA violations that could result if you do not keep stuff confidential.
Thank you.
Obviously, ideally, we'll have, you know, when we review information coming into a meeting, we'll know ahead of time whether there might be a perceived conflict of interest. In the rare event that you're in a meeting and you realize, oh shoot, this might be a conflict of interest, is there a recommendation?
I would recommend that you just recuse yourself
Okay.
on the off chance, and you can even say that, I'm not 100% sure if I need to do this, but I'm gonna walk out of the room. As long as you're not breaking a quorum for the vote, then I would just, and if it was in your situation, you would just basically hand the gavel
Hand it
over
over
to
to-
your vice chair, you know, for that. And it should be noted in the minutes that, you know, Commissioner Lockhart left the room at this time, the discussion vote happened, then when, you know, Commissioner Lockhart came back in, and this even counts for Zoom, like log off, like get out or somehow figure out a way to not be in the room for Zoom, so. And that can also be noted in the minutes that so-and-so logged off of the meeting and then logged back in. Any questions? Okay, moving along. Section 5, staffing. Each board and commission committee shall be assigned a staff liaison, and each board commission committee shall be assigned a clerk or secretary. Sometimes Sometimes this can be the same person, and I'm not sure if it is in planning commission world. I think Kate is your liaison, because you're not liaison anymore, right? So yeah, and then Hannah is your secretary. Work plans. This is kind of a new one for us. The staff liaison will submit a proposed work plan to the mayor by February 1st of the upcoming year. Mayor and council will review the proposed work plans within the first quarter. Additions and deletions to the work plan will be submitted to the mayor anytime during the plan year, and the mayor shall present the proposed changes to council, who will consider taking action to approve or disapprove. And the BCC usually, this is in a couple different spots in the rules, but I wanted to make mention of it here because it talks about the work plan. That a BCC does not take action on matters brought up during public comment section of the meeting. They may, if appropriate, request additional information from staff during your board member reports. Provided nothing herein shall be construed as requiring the matter to be added to the work plan. And I believe, Mary, you wanted to make a comment about, it's mostly about staffing and making sure that we're getting items on the work plan
Oh,
that
right.
is pre-approved by council done. You know, and not adding additional work to a staff member that's not planned for.
Thank you. This is only the third one I've done, so thanks. Yeah, so there are some cities and counties that the boards and commissions sort of act in a way that is almost autonomous. That is not the way that things work here at the city of Monroe. The items you work on come from the council or come from the mayor. And so if there's something that you're interested in discussing, it is acceptable during your commissioner reports, which I suspect are at the end of your agenda, to say, hey, there's this thing that we heard during public comment. I'd like to learn more about it. Would it be okay if we ask the city administrator to see if this can be added to an upcoming meeting? It is my duty as the mayor. This is a strong mayor form of government, which is different than a city manager form of government. It is my duty to make certain that the staff is able to get its regular job done. And that adding things that are not part of the work program can add, even though it might sound like a simple request, can add a substantial amount of work. It's also important for you to make certain that you all are able to get your job done within the timelines that both the council and I are working on as well. Because as you're aware of, there are GMA-based deadlines and things like that that we must meet. And so adding things to agendas can be difficult to do. So the process is during a meeting, bring it up during your reports. Your staff liaison can bring that back to the administrator. The administrator would talk to the mayor. And in some cases, they're small enough things that it won't even make it that high up the chain for discussion. If it is a pretty substantial project, the mayor may talk to the council to have adjustments made. So those are just some items of note for you. Did I get it?
I think so, okay. Section 7, meetings, regular meeting time shall be designated by official action of each BCC, subject to the mayor's approval. And the BCC reserves the right, as deemed necessary, to cancel, adjourn, or continue any regular meeting in accordance with state law. Special meeting is defined as any meeting other than a regular meeting. Pretty simple stuff.
Before we move off of that, this is just reiterating what I did before, which is it's a matter of staff and resources. We can't move meetings to another night because it interrupts a schedule that we have. We've got council meetings on Tuesday nights. We have planning commission meetings on Monday nights. We have CHSAD meetings on Thursdays. Do we have anything on Wednesdays? No, we probably would. But as you can see, there's a process, and then we also have, especially for planning commission and for the city council, certain things that need to make it to council by certain days and things like that. So we do need to keep things on the same day. If we need to have something on a different day, like a special meeting, as it's noted there, it goes up to the mayor for consideration to approve. The council and I talked about council approving that and felt that the mayor's approval would make it so that things could happen a little bit more quickly if a meeting were necessary. The last part of that is that we also need to have staff present. So we need to make certain that for issues of liability and everything that we are We have staff present to record meetings. If you were to do something like a meeting on a Saturday, I need to make certain that, I, as the mayor, am aware of what the financial implications would be to book a room, to pay for overtime and so on and so forth. So, these are the, legitimate operational reasons why this is an important thing. Thank you.
Okay, remote attendance. BCC members are encouraged to attend all meetings in person. However, members may from time to time attend meetings remotely. This section is guidelines for attending meeting remotely. Just a couple of highlights for that. All members shall strive to keep your videos on at all times. While not speaking, you'll keep your microphone muted in order to reduce outside distractions. Remote attendees must be able to hear the public comment, testimony, presentations, and vote in real time. And remote attendees must be able to ask for and receive recognition when you wish to speak.
Before we move off of that, this was an item that we discussed with the council. There were a variety of opinions on this. I feel we struck a good balance here. We're expecting you to be at meetings in person going forward. From time to time is what we came up with to acknowledge that you may be on vacation. You might be sick. You might have something going on at home, but you really want to be in the planning commission. And we're allowing the opportunity for you to participate remotely in those situations. But we are expecting you're going to be the vast majority of the meetings in person. Okay. I know that's changed since 2020, but we feel that we can get more done as a community when we are in the physical space, interacting with one another. You can see people's body language better. You also have the ability to have conversations before the planning commission meetings and after the planning commission meetings. That can be really important for building relationships and things like that. The reason why the videos need to be on it, for some people, it can be seen as really rude if you are in a meeting and your video is off. You know, obviously, if you're driving, I did this recently about 8 weeks ago on a meeting where I was just listening. You know, if you're driving and listening to a meeting, you know, the video should be off, period. And you shouldn't be participating, you should be listening. But, you know, for some reason you're doing something and you need to turn off the video briefly, that's fine, but we want the videos on, prefer not to have those backgrounds. It's nice to know in the back of the room that you're the only person there. And then to Jody's point, we want you to have a headset on, because we're having a meeting just for the people that are there, not the people that might be in the room with you. So these are just some points of etiquette that not everybody follows in Zoom and Teams meetings that are important here at the city. Okay. Right. Thank you.
Okay. I'll do one more section and then we'll pause for questions. The presiding officer establishes rules related to nominations of a chair and vice chair and their responsibilities. The presiding officer at the meeting, at all meetings, shall be the chair, and in the absence of the chair, the vice chair or chair pro tem, however you guys name that person. And then there's a list of what the chair is responsible for. One thing we wanted to highlight is that the presiding officer will strive to recognize members in order of their request for recognition and is encouraged to prioritize recognizing members who have not spoken on a specific item over those who have spoken to an item already. So it's essentially just trying to make sure that everybody has a chance to speak their mind on an item if they so choose. And the chair for all of our boards and commissions has the full right to discuss and vote on all matters before the BCC, unlike the mayor who doesn't vote on anything unless breaking a tie, and even then it's rare. So I'm going to pause there.
Thank
Do you want to speak? Okay.
Thanks. All right, so a couple things here. First, the third bullet, this is really important. Okay, you have some people that put their hands up regularly in a planning commission meeting, and then you have other people who never do. The chair, generally, you should try to take people in order, but if I'm going, person A speaks, and person B, and then person A, and then person C, and then B, and then C, and then A, and then you have B and C waiting, and all of a sudden, person E puts his flag up, I want you to go with the person, because they've been going back and forth the whole time. And that's important because you used to have a council member, Ed Davis, he rarely said anything. And to this day, we kind of joke, you know, at the end, council member reports, nothing to report, and people say, thank you, thank you, Ed, or thank you, council member Davis, even though he left serving as a council member a couple of years ago. I always called on him. Even if his flag went up and maybe Bob's flag went up just before his, I'd go ahead and call on Ed because he really spoke. And it's kind of a point of equity. You know, this is somebody that doesn't always speak. They usually listen and they still make good decisions. And but you want to hear from that person. When that person puts their hand up or flag up, you want to hear from that person. So I encourage you to acknowledge people. So there is that conflict. It says that, you know, you will strive to recognize people in the order of their request to be recognized. But then we also encourage you to recognize people who have not spoken. That's how that kind of works. The second thing that we talk about on this slide is the chair. I strongly recommend that your chairs serve no more than 2 years. The reason for that is that I have seen scout packs, lacrosse teams, even city commissions, boards, etc., suddenly fail because you had 1 or 2 or 3 people that were the leaders of the organization for 5, 10 years. And all of a sudden they leave and nobody has the background or skills or confidence to be able to do the job. A good leader is not a leader while they're there. A good leader is somebody that leaves behind a legacy of people, not projects, but people that can lead. Your job when you're the chair is to make certain that there is somebody, not somebody, but some bodies that can continue chairing the meeting when you're no longer there. So I strongly encourage the planning commission, just like I have all the other boards and commissions, that you go 2 years, it's not in the bylaws, but you go 2 years and then you step down. I have the same criticism about the federal government, state government, and some people in local government. That's why I'm not running for a 4th term. The best form of leadership is being able to step down and know that somebody else is going to be able to be there to carry the torch for a new generation of people. Okay, so that's something that's really important to me. It's not in writing in here, but it's something that I strongly recommend that you all do. And then I guess lastly, for right now on the presiding officer, I strongly recommend that when you call for the vote, that whoever you are, right now.
Yes.
So you say all in favor, aye, all opposed, no. I recommend that you say the chair votes aye or the chair votes no. What it does is it gets on the record how you voted, but it also reminds everybody that you're not a strong mayor, that you are just another commissioner, like a weak mayor that actually can vote. And I think that it's just good to say that, aye, no, chair votes aye, motion passes 7-0, whatever the case. All right, I think that's all I have on this one. Thank you.
Any questions, Chair? Oh, a couple of them.
Thank you. On the work plans, 6.2, the mayor and council will review proposed work plans within the first quarter of the year. Do they formally vote and adopt it?
Yes.
Yes.
I thought so, but it's not explicit there. And then, so section 7.1A, where the meetings will be scheduled to end 3 hours after the beginning time, provided that the meetings may be extended by majority vote of the BCC. So I had noticed in the past, the planning commission took a vote after 2 hours. So we don't longer have to take that process.
Correct. Because these rules supersede your own or your old ones. So now your to be extended time is 10 PM, 7 to 10. And like if you start your meeting early, just adjust accordingly, about 3 hours. So
If you start your meeting early, can you take any official?
No, please.
if you can't just like start it early because everybody's there, but
Right.
if you notice for an early start of a meeting, we do that.
Oh,
with
don't you
council.
notice? Yes,
Yeah,
yes. I
Yeah.
think that's why I didn't hear that part, sorry.
Commissioner Lowe? Do you have? Yeah, my.
No, okay.
Any others? No, okay.
Okay, moving on. Section 10 is agenda preparation. An item may be placed on the agenda by the city administrator, a department head, or the staff liaison with the concurrence of the city administrator. And a BCC member may request an item be added to a future agenda, subject to a majority vote of the BCC members. And the request will be reviewed and approved or denied by the staff liaison, city administrator, or mayor. Again, going back to the staff resources and, you know, sometimes we've received requests from a council member that is like, hey, I'd like a little bit more data on this, not realizing that it's going to take a staff member 8 hours of digging through numbers to get this one point of data. So we have to kind of keep all that in mind when we're adding items to agendas. During the meeting, subject to an agenda, during the meeting, subject to the agenda, BCC members by majority vote modify the agenda, including additions and deletions. And that is a new section that is allowed to be added to your agendas. That was actually at the request of the liaisons that I worked with, was to have a section called additions and deletions to the agenda. And it's mostly like, sometimes we'll just have one of those weird situations where all of a sudden staff has to walk something on that wasn't expected. Or all of a sudden, the staff member that was going to present an item is sick and can't be there. So we have to push it off to the next agenda. So this is just a special section on the agenda that could be added if you want, that just allows that formal process.
So just to underscore, the intent here is not that you hear something during public comment and you add
And you add it,
something.
right.
The intent here is not you show up in a meeting and you add something. The intent here is that a staff member, it's staff or mayor or council.
Or a lot of times we have to move things around on an agenda because we have somebody from the outside attending and, yeah.
So the
So,
recording doesn't start.
yeah, exactly. Yep, those kinds of things. Order of regular meeting agenda. The rules outline the usual order of the agenda for regular business meetings. Items marked optional may be added or omitted based on the preference of the individual BCC. And I recommend that at a future meeting, you guys discuss all the options you have and decide if you want to update your agenda to include some items that were not there before. The adjournment, I don't know how you guys do it at Planning Commission, but we started using the non-objection way of adjourning our meetings. And essentially what it is the mayor, in your case, the chair, says there being no further business and no objections, pause, the meeting shall be adjourned. And then,
Meeting's adjourned.
yeah, right, the meeting's adjourned. So,
She does it in a wax.
so instead of having to go through a majority vote, you can do the non-objection. Alternatively, the BCC members may make a motion, second and majority vote to adjourn if they so choose. But the non-objection voting is a really good way of just kind of streamlining the processes and making your meetings more efficient. The other thing too is I noticed on your agenda, you have your two approvals of minutes as two separate items. You can take advantage of the consent agenda and having one motion to approve the consent agenda, which would include all of your minutes, and possibly some other business that is either routine in nature, you've seen it 8 times and you just now need to do the formal thing. All those types of things can go on a consent agenda, and the consent agenda is approved by one motion. And any member of the BCC can remove an item from the consent agenda just by stating that they want to do so. And then you move forward with approving the consent agenda without that item included, and then take that item up immediately after the consent agenda. Here's your staff tip. If you plan on taking something off the consent agenda, please tell your staff first. Because a lot of the times there may not be, like for council, we have multiple departments put stuff on our consent agenda. And so if somebody's planning on taking something off the consent agenda and we don't know until that moment, that staff member that would normally be able to answer questions about it is not present for the meeting. So having a heads up that you plan on removing something from the consent agenda prepares your staff to answer questions and, you know, be able to come prepared to do that for you. Doesn't mean you can't remove it, just give us a heads up first, please.
And we generally have not done consent agenda on planning commission.
It is a great way to streamline your business, so if you want to move in that direction, and it's allowed in your rules.
So before we move off of this, and it's a related to this with the consent agenda, we have a. We want you to make certain when you get your packets, you review the material. The business day before is when you should be, no later than the business day before is when you should be asking questions of staff for things. And that includes, like, if you think you're gonna pull something off the consent agenda, or if you've got a question about something. You want to give staff that 24 hours to be able to research the information and get it back to you, or know that you're gonna pull something from the consent agenda, so that they can prepare. Our standard is that by noon on the day that a meeting is, when it's at night, that all issues related to that meeting are resolved. It is, the intent of these meetings that you are in deliberation. It is not necessarily the intent of these meetings, you're asking for clarification in these meetings, unless it's something that came up as part of a presentation. You should be asking for clarification in fact-based things ahead of meetings. You should be doing deliberation in these meetings. That is a better use of time. Our council meetings have shrunk in time. We don't think we've only done a motion to extend maybe 3 times while I've been serving as mayor. I attribute a lot of that to the fact that our council is reading the packets and asking questions ahead of time, and getting clarification ahead of time. It's not always perfect, but we're probably doing 85%, 90%, as opposed to other times that I've served for the city. And so that would be my ask, just contact your staff ahead of time, so that they can be prepared, get you responses, email responses the day of to you and your colleagues, and or just have the facts that they can clarify as part of the presentation we're giving it to you in the group.
And I'll just add real quick to that it doesn't mean you can't ask the question in the meeting as well. Sometimes you want to ask that question for the record so that it's out there, because if you're not sure about something, chances are one of your other fellow commissioners might have the same question. So go ahead and ask it for the record, but you've already pre-asked it, so your staff is already prepared to answer. And they might even present it in such a way that they're answering the question before you even ask it, so.
Yeah, the other takeaway on this slide, thank you. The other takeaway on this slide is, I think I missed this at the last meeting, but no surprises. Okay. Okay, good. For your staff, no surprises. Okay, you want to make certain that you're alerting them ahead of time. No surprises when it comes time for the meeting. When there are surprises, sometimes it can look political. It brings up questions of preparedness. Try not to have any surprises for the staff.
Commissioner Blair?
So when should we be getting our agendas then? Because if we should have 24 hours of business day to look at them, we need them by the morning on Friday morning.
I don't know when you get them right now. So, when do they get their packets?
Friday afternoon.
Well, we need to take a look at making some modifications there. I want to make certain that you're able to get questions to the staff by Friday. And so we'll need to talk with staff about getting you materials, maybe on Wednesdays, so that you can have Thursday, Wednesday night, Thursday to review the material, and then to be able to ask questions on Fridays. Question I'd have for you, Chair, your meetings tend to go late.
Usually not, actually, and also to Patrick, just to tell you with the minutes, we usually are only doing one set of minutes at a time. It's very rare for us to do 2 at a time. So this was kind of a little bit of a unique night, and that's usually the only thing that's on that. So in terms of consent agenda stuff, but we can look at it for sure.
Well, the staff obviously are listening to my comments right now. My intent is for you to have, be able to ask those questions so that they have at least one business day to research them and be prepared. And yes, your meetings are on Monday nights. So, that would mean that you would have your packets by Thursday. By Wednesday morning, sorry.
Okay. So, going back, just a few of the specific items in the order of a regular meeting agenda. Roll call, the presiding officer shall indicate any member who is not in attendance and ask for any objections to excusing the absence. If no objections are raised, the presiding officer shall announce that the absence is excused. The reason this is important is because skipping down to the very bottom of this slide, 3 consecutive unexcused absences or more than 5 absences in a 12-month period shall be grounds for loss of a position at the discretion of the mayor. And with as much notice as possible, you should inform the staff liaison or the staff clerk if you're unable to attend a meeting or if you knowingly will be late to a meeting. And one thing I didn't add in here that I should have is that if somebody does show up late, you don't need to interrupt a discussion or a presentation to say so, but as soon as the opportunity presents itself, the presiding officer should note for the record out loud that Commissioner Dawkins arrived at 7:15 during the previous presentation. So that it's verbally mentioned, especially because we record our meetings, and also so that it can get recorded into the minutes.
Before we move off of this, I want to note that the last part there, so a couple things. One, in one of the earlier board or commission meetings that we presented at, the question was, what is considered an excused absence? Generally speaking, that means that they need to notify you ahead of time. So they should notify staff ahead of time. There should be a general reason. I don't want you to announce specifics on the record. That's just not fair. It could be a family emergency, it could be an illness, something like that. I keep it broad for the public record as to why they're not here. It can be hard to not excuse somebody, especially on a planning commissioner or parks board or something like that. That last thing that's stated there, 3 consecutive unexcused absences, even if you excuse them, because it's hard to not excuse knowing your colleagues, these appointments are still the mayor's appointments. The mayor can make a decision that even with 3 excused absences, if the mayor doesn't find that they are really excused absences, can decide to make a change and can decide to have somebody leave the board commission. So just be aware that it does say shall be grounds for loss of position. That is the council's desire. And it is at the discretion of the mayor that the mayor, at the end of the day, the mayor does have discretion. So just sharing with you there so that if you do have those 3 excused absences that are consecutive, if it happens again, it will still be the discretion of the mayor. Okay.
Public comments. Written comments can be sent prior to the meeting or submitted at the meeting. If they're submitted prior to the meeting, they will be forwarded to the BCC via email. If at the meeting, they will be distributed to the BCC at the meeting if there's enough copies provided, or emailed after the meeting if not enough copies. Written comments will not be read into the record by staff. Oral comments are limited to in-person only, thanks to December 5th, 2023. Remote oral comment is not permitted unless otherwise allowed by RCW, that you see on your screen. And that's essentially, somebody notifies the city that they are disabled or some other reason they cannot physically attend the meeting. But if we allow for that one, we would have to allow for the others as well. Sign up sheets for comments from the public will be available at each meeting. You guys already do that. And then the chair tip here is to make sure and stop that commenter at 3 minutes, to avoid any, feeling of the mayor being a mean head when he's at the presenting the council.
Okay.
That's an official term.
Thanks.
In general, the BCC usually does not take action on matters brought up during the public comments. I mentioned that before. The biggest thing here that I want as the takeaway is that this is not an opportunity for back and forth conversation or Q&A session between the BCC members and the public. We have had situations where we've had even a council member start to try and ask a question of the person giving public comment, and the mayor had to kind of quash that at the time because that is not appropriate. This is a time for the public to give comments to you as their planning commissioners. If you have clarifying questions or you would like more information about what the person is speaking of during the board member reports, is your opportunity to say, staff, I'd like to hear a little bit more about this, or, can we ask for a presentation, whatever the case may be. We have people come and try and do sales pitches in front of council, you know, during public comments and stuff like that. So it's, like I said, not a Q&A. If they start asking questions or they start really coming in and they're complaining about something, which I'm sure you guys have seen with land use stuff, the mayor oftentimes will say, you know, thank you for your comment. We'll have staff reach out to you, or Lance, do you have your business card on you? Can you, you know, that kind of thing. So that's a way to give them a little bit of what they are looking for as far as getting an answer right then and there.
Before we move off this, again, I just want to be clear, the chair tip here, make certain you stop a commenter at 3 minutes, you should have the 3-minute counter up there on the board. When you hit 3 minutes, just say, that's the end of your public comment. Any further comments you have can be submitted in writing. Next item on the agenda is, or next public commenter is. You need to do that. Okay, and I think I mentioned before the recording came on that, you know, early on when I was serving as mayor, I would say, please wrap up your comments. And I was finding that some people wrapping up their comments, they literally just go and sit down. There are other people, thank you, that's all I have to say, have a nice day. And there are other people that their idea of wrapping up was 30, 60 seconds, 90 seconds. You need to stop them at 3 minutes, and the way that you can give them the opportunity to submit additional comments is by submitting them in writing. So that's just what you need to do. Okay. And then I know it can be really hard. People should not get personal. Chair can redirect them. But if they should be talking to you, the chair, technically, but you'll probably make eye contact with everybody else. If they start getting personal or something like that, you know, try to redirect, but at the end of the day, they have 3 minutes, and they can go ahead and generally say their piece. If they're 3 minutes, do not engage in going back and forth. No, this isn't a Q&A. It may be hard for somebody, you know, hear something said about you, you want to refute right now. This is not the time to do that. Okay. Sure.
Yes.
Does the city have a plan in place for dealing with rowdy?
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Coming
it's
up.
in there, and I have experience with that now.
Yeah.
Twice.
I have a quick question from the chair. So we've had the people asking questions, and I redirected a couple hearings ago. And the last one, I just kind of gave the reminder ahead of time with the public comment, just to say as a reminder, this isn't an opportunity for questions and a back and forth. So if you have additional questions, we have staff present who can answer questions, you know, after the meeting. Things like that. Is that okay? You okay with
Yes.
that part? Okay.
Yeah, I think that you've got,
You will have, I forgot.
you'll have a script.
Okay.
And the script for public comment is like this much.
Okay.
There's a bunch of bullets,
Mhm.
and there's a bunch of bullets on the back.
Okay.
And so what I will do, because our attorneys have given me a script, is I'll usually, now's the time for public comment. Clerk will check to see if we have any written comments. Jody will get up and go and she'll go like this. And I'll say, okay, we have nobody who signed up to speak. Is there anybody that would like to speak? And I look at sometimes empty chairs and nobody wants to speak. I say, okay, seeing none, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda. And I didn't read that. There are other times where it's one person, there's not a major thing on the agenda. There's nothing major going on politically, and I'll just say, hey, we need to keep it to 3 minutes, and I'll spare you the reading of the rest of this. There are other times where you've got a contentious item, and you've got 40 people out there who want to speak, and it's usually land use, and you'll go through and you're going to read the longer part of the script, which is 3/4 of the page, which includes, I think that this is not a time to go back and forth. No personal this, no slander, nothing like that. We place them on notice. And then we'll talk more about that in a later slide.
Yeah, I got a slide.
I have a question about that. It relates to I think the hearing that we had the other night, where, and I've had different experiences with this, where someone brings up a question and they're asking a direct question about the proceeding, like there's a specific item that's being under discussion. And in my experience, there have been times when, like, in this case, planning commissioner may have somebody may have asked a question that they wanted clarification on. They can ask staff to provide information on that. You know, so like in this case, somebody had asked about an ADU, a question about that, and it was like, okay, I mean, there was an answer for it, and if prompted, staff could have provided that. If just someone from the planning commission said, well, someone had asked about this, could staff provide some clarification for it, we could do that.
That's a good point. So it takes you back to why do you have public comment and why do you have a public hearing? The reason why you have public comment and it's early in the agenda, really, the main reason is so they can look at the agenda ahead of time and say, hey, I have this to say about this item and I have this question, right? So they should be talking mainly about what's on the agenda. Usually they're talking about something else, but they should be mainly talking about what's on the agenda. Okay, so that's a time for them to say, hey, yeah, I've got a question about this and I don't like that. And this thing, is lousy. And then they go sit down, and that would be a time where you, as commissioners, take notes on the questions that came up. And you, as the chair, the person sitting there, say, this isn't a time for Q&A. However, I'm going to ask that staff be prepared to answer that question during the presentation. Next person, and then move on to the next person. So that's a way to acknowledge, make certain that they get an answer from the staff member, and then it's the same thing for the public hearing. So that's the reason why those are there, so that you can take those comments and incorporate them into your deliberation. Next slide.
Yes, and so the appropriate time would be right after comment, and then we could direct staff back to those questions.
Not for
No.
public comment.
You would incorporate that into, like, if they're talking about agenda item number 3. Agenda item number 3 sucks. I don't like the mayor's recommendation to approve it. This should be 10 feet and not 15 feet for the buffer. Thank you. When agenda item number 3 comes up, that would be a time to address it. Hey, during public comments, somebody commented about agenda item number 3. They said XYZ. Staff, can you tell me what your thoughts are about XYZ?
It's often that those comments are coming right before we have a deliberation, right? Like.
For public hearing, yeah.
For public
Yeah.
hearing, there's a whole process on how to go back between commenters, staff presentations and all that kind of stuff. It's different than what you're used to. So it's gonna take a little bit, and I was supposed to print off your script for you for those as well, and I forgot. So I assume we'll probably do your public hearings tonight, similar to what you're used to, but there is a whole process on how to do that during a public hearing.
If they bring up something that's not on the agenda, that would be where you bring it up during your commissioner comment. Yeah, not until the end. But if they bring up something related to something on the agenda and you want to bring it up or ask staff a question, bring it up when it comes up on the agenda.
Okay, and if we are voting that in right away, do we,
Public
that's
comment
what-
happens first.
public comment happens, and then we usually go right after that, so we can direct staff,
You can ask staff. You can't
ask staff,
direct.
or sorry, ask
It's okay.
staff to clarify
Yes,
right before we.
before you vote.
Okay.
Right. When the agenda item comes up.
Huge.
What?
I'm a little bit confused, because some of this is new to me. So public comment, in my experience, has been for public comment on items not on the agenda or not in the public hearing. So if a public wanted to talk about something not on the agenda, they're free to talk about it.
That's correct.
We can't do anything.
Correct.
We could ask for clarification in the commissioner's comments. If they bring something up on the agenda that doesn't have a public hearing attached to it, it's just the same as bringing it up if it's not on the agenda, because there's no public hearing, we can do it during the time where we deliberate on the item on the agenda. If public tries to bring up something that's in the public hearing, redirect them to the public hearing, come and talk during the public hearing. It will happen in the agenda. Right, is that something?
So let me clarify. Tonight, you voted on the minutes.
Yes.
Public comment happened before the minutes.
Right.
If somebody has a problem with something in the minutes, they would have said, hey, in the minutes, I saw this typo, and then they'd sit down. When the agenda item comes up to approve the minutes, that's where you would ask staff, so, hey, is there a typo?
Yes.
Yeah, 90% of the people that comment in public comment, you are correct, are not items on the agenda. And those would be the items that if you wanted to follow up on, you could bring up during commissioner reports. So that in the 10% of the time where they talk about something on the agenda, that would be where you bring it up when the item comes up on your agenda. And you're right, for public hearing, that's where you would redirect and say, if this is about the public hearing, I'm gonna respectfully request that you reserve those comments to the public hearing time. If for some reason they go ahead and give public hearing comment during the public comment, you can see if you can make a motion to incorporate them into the public hearing. So you may have somebody for some reason that it may be difficult for them to get up and speak during the public hearing. They just gave their public comment rather than having redo the whole thing. You can see if staff's okay with making a motion to incorporate that into the public hearing. I'm sorry, commissioners. Thank you.
Man, the staff could give motions and vote.
We don't want that. So.
My job's done.
We're gonna be in deep trouble.
So Chair, there's been a lot of questioning on that particular item. Are there any questions?
I have a quick question, if that's okay. Apologies.
Oh, gosh.
Chair Lockhart mentioned a question that she had over, asking the person asking the question if they could talk to staff after the meeting. And I just wanted to clarify, do you mean immediately after the meeting? A lot of times staff would leave, or the following day,
No,
they
no.
can email and call.
What I would recommend is, staff is here, they're going to give you their card, and maybe you take down some information if you can. It's good to do that in the lobby right after that person speaks, and then let them know you're gonna get back to them, but no, I don't expect them to stay.
Yeah.
That's another thing too, is you have hourly staff, and then they're staying after, and you've got security and everything associated with being a late night meeting. It's better for them to be able to go back, research, and get back to the person. Perfect. Yeah, thank you.
I have a question. Yes, ma'am. Okay, I'm kind of confused too. So we did have people come and speak, and this one lady was talking, example, about a tree. So we're talking about this tree and nothing gets resolved. Does that get put on the agenda sometime down the road?
Not necessarily. It
Is this
depends.
something that she just brings up? They just bring stuff up?
Yes, during public comment, they can come in and talk about
Anything?
anything. It should be related to the city of Monroe. It
Okay.
preferably will be on the agenda. 90% of the time it is related to the city of Monroe.
Right,
Only 10% of the time is it something that is on the agenda. That's just kind of how things go. Usually people come in and it's like a neighborhood group that are concerned about speeding. You know, you've gone multiple meetings without anybody there. And then all of a sudden there's somebody talking, or a group of people talking about speeding.
okay, so then what happens? That's it? Nothing
That's it. They
happens?
give public comment.
And that's it?
That's it.
Okay.
Yes, for that 90% where they're coming and talking about things not on the agenda during the commissioner reports. If it's something you feel falls within the realm of the planning commission, remember, you've got a work program every year, you've got a lot of work to do. And if for some reason it didn't get given to staff, or maybe it did get given to staff, you can always ask staff that it would be possible to get an update via email about what happened with that conversation.
Okay.
So that's a good way for you to stay informed.
Okay.
But again, we want to be very deliberate and thoughtful about adding new things to the agenda in the future. And this is one of the reasons why when people come and give public comment, they're used to the going back and forth that they think they see on TV and everything. It's a one-way communication. That's what it is. And that can be frustrating.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Okay, here we go.
I do have, and it's actually going back to section 11. On pledge of allegiance. It does say optional, and I know we don't, but I have been on other boards, where if you're in a city building, you're required to. So we do,
Yeah, not a requirement, but it is an option to add it to your agenda as a regular standing item. And that's why I suggested that at a future meeting, you have a discussion item related to the planning commission agenda. And just look at those optional items and say, do we want to switch to consent agenda instead of the approval of minutes? Do we want to add the pledge? Do we want to have, this other thing that's,
I wasn't sure when we moved if that's.
yeah, no, you won't, we're not requiring any of our boards or commissions to say the pledge. Okay, Moving on to section 12, member discussion during meetings. This establishes the rules for decorum during member discussions. This is literally the entire section. It's basically just talking about how to talk about an item amongst yourselves, without hurting feelings or without, with equity amongst yourselves, of everybody gets to talk. So speak one at a time. Taking care not to reiterate previous comments or arguments. Rebut only once. Speak only twice to the same subject without permission of the presiding officer. Speak one at a time. Don't interrupt another speaker. Wait for the presentations to conclude before offering comments and asking questions, and speak to the merits of an issue and avoid references to personalities. The chair tip here is keep discussion related to the motion at hand. If another topic comes up during discussion, request that that be added to a future agenda. So we've had that happen during council where we make a motion, we start discussing it, and then suddenly we go squirrel and we start talking about something completely different. We're like, hold up. This motion over here has to do with this contract, and now we're talking about this other thing over there. Let's put a pin in that and get back to the, business at hand. So, and your staff liaison should be taking notes on things like that come up, so that it doesn't get lost. But that's why we have that chair tip there.
A couple items on that one. First, the way that I usually do it is that the staff gives a presentation. My next question then is, thank you, staff member. Are there any questions for clarification or a motion? Okay, so I'm first asking, are there any questions of clarification? So they've said something, you've read your packet. You saw that, it was 10 feet setback, but the staff member just said 15 feet. You go ahead and ask for clarification. Or a motion. You're not technically under Robert's rules supposed to be deliberating the merits of a motion until a motion has been made. The theory here is that if nobody's going to make a motion, we really don't need to talk about deliberating, approving, or disapproving something. Okay, so before you talk deliberation, you should have somebody make a motion. That's why I say clarification or a motion. Now, after a motion's made, you can still ask for clarification if you need to. But I ask you, please do not talk about the merits of something until there's a motion on the floor. Just a good way to do things. Your deliberation, you speak one at a time. This is not like sitting around a dining room table. It should be structured kind of like I do the council meetings where one person speaks at a time. I strongly urge you not to ask a question of the rest of the council. I strongly recommend that you do not ask the person sitting next to you a direct question. The only person that can speak is the person who has the floor. The person who assigns the floor is the chair. The chair grants you the floor, recognizes you to speak. Nobody else should be speaking. So I please do not ask your neighbor, because it's going to put them in a weird position where they feel like they need to answer. And again, this is not like sitting around a dining room table. The chair should not, when that happens, as soon as the person starts to talk, theoretically, that person now has the floor. If Bob's going to make a motion to deny something and says, sure, Mary, you can go ahead and answer my question. Mary may go ahead and make a motion to approve something that Bob was going to make a motion to deny. You've just given away your ability to make a motion, and you, the chair, have lost control of the meeting. Okay, so I know that it's structured. I know that it feels different. That's how things should go. And yes, that means that Bob might be talking about bourbon, and then Mary might talk about catfish. Carla wants to talk about bourbon. Brandy wants to talk about chocolate, and it gets all kerfuffled because the topics seem to be disjointed. That's just kind of the way that it is. Just sort of roll with it. Yes, he's going to talk about something. We're going to talk about something different, and you're going to come back and talk about what he talked about. That's why there should be a motion in the deliberation. As you can see, we don't do this on council where we're strict on the twice and everything. There are times where it would be nice if we did that because we avoid swirl. Right? The swirl thing, that's really important. There are things that come up during discussion, and what you really need to manage the meeting and say, hey, that's something that's not before us right now. Let's see if we can bring that back and at another agenda and then try to keep everybody on focus. Last thing, when I became mayor, there was something that the council used to do, and it was called yielding the floor. You do not yield the floor. Okay, when you have the floor, you have the floor. And when you say you're done speaking, you no longer have the floor. And the only person that has the ability to transfer the floor is the chair. Okay, the commissioners do not manage the floor. So we do not yield the floor. We do not ask one another questions directly. It's okay to say, hey, I don't know how I'm going to vote on this. If the motion's already been made, I don't know how I'm going to vote on this. I'm hoping to hear some more deliberation on this. Thank you. And then let everybody else speak and you can make your decision on it. I think that covered everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna go through sections 13 through 15 kind of as one unit. As you all know, you are subject to the Open Public Meetings Act or OPMA. And all BCC shall follow Robert's Rules of Order for parliamentary proceedings, which you guys do a pretty good job of doing. Staff tip, training is available for parliamentary processes. I highly recommend Jurassic Parliament. He's awesome. And it is required for OPMA and PRA. And then the chair tip here is to use non-objection voting where appropriate to provide more efficient meetings. That's kind of that adjournment one that I was talking about. So your types of action, you have two types of action, your minute orders, which is basically what you guys did. I'm not going to read the example here because again, you guys are very good at doing your minute orders. The one thing I will say in the example is that you should always be calling for the noes, even though it appears that there is a unanimous vote. So all those in favor say aye, pause for the vote. All those in favor say no, not
opposed.
you're all opposed. Oh,
You
yeah.
said in favor.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Opposite day. All those opposed say no, not nay, because aye and nay sound a little too similar, especially on recordings. So say no, and then like the mayor was saying, chair votes in whichever way you are planning to vote. Motion passes 7-0, 6-1, whatever the case may be. For the other type of action would be a resolution. That's only used if an item requires a higher level of formality and documentation. Your motions,
Off of that real quick. Instead of just saying motion passes or fails, I do recommend you say motion passes 6-1 with Commissioner Dawkins voting against. Like that, you have on the record who voted against something, and then it's just assumed the rest of the people voted in favor.
and it should be noted in the minutes as such as well. So if you've ever had the pleasure of seeing the Robert's Rules of Order book, it is literally this thick. Painful. You need something to read before bed. There you go. So there are some of those motions outlined in the rules of procedure, the more common ones. The two things here, unless expressly stated otherwise, any motion authorizing the chair to sign a document on behalf of the BCC also includes the authority for the vice chair to sign said document. And any unless otherwise expressly stated, a motion to approve a document shall include the authority for the clerk to make non-substantive revisions to correct errors such as formatting, spelling, punctuation, etc. For voting, a motion that receives a tie vote is deemed to have failed and may be brought back for reconsideration at the same or future meeting by majority vote. The BCC members are expected to vote on all items except those that they have been disqualified from for appearance, fairness, or conflict of interest. A member who abstains may express their intent to abstain during deliberation and shall state, "I abstain" during the vote. An abstention will not count as a vote in favor or opposition and will be noted in the minutes. I didn't hear you ask for any abstentions during approval of the minutes, but if that is a common practice, you don't need to do that anymore. It's the member's responsibility to say, "I plan to abstain from this vote." And then say such during the voting process. If a member remains silent during a vote, it is presumed that they are voting with the majority and shall be counted as such. Subcommittees,
What if it's a tie vote?
it's failed. And it may be brought back at the same or future meeting.
So to address, but let's address that question, because if you hear 3 ayes and you hear 3 nays, so if it's hard to figure something out, it's okay to do a roll call vote. So basically, the clerk goes down the line, or you go down the line. We're now gonna take a roll call vote, Commissioner Petrino, how do you vote? Commissioner Walsh, Commissioner Lowe, and then like that, you get each person's vote. I've done that a couple times where I had complicated votes, and it was hard for me to hear, it was hard for me to discern. The other thing too is that when you vote, it's gonna put your hand up, aye, no, that's another way to do it. Does that work for you?
Okay. Purpose of subcommittees is to gather information about a specific topic for the BCC in order to provide more efficient and effective use of regular meeting time. Some subcommittees will address issues assigned to them by the full BCC. Administrative support to and attendance of subcommittees is provided at the discretion of the city administrator. The subcommittee shall consist of less than a quorum of the full BCC, so in your case, 3 or less people. All subcommittee meetings are open to the public as required by OPMA. And the BCC rules outline the minimum items that should be included on a subcommittee agenda. And our recommendation is don't do subcommittees because it's a pain for everybody. But if you are going to do them, there's your rules. 17, presentation to boards, commissions, committees. This is kind of more of a rule for your public, actually. Remarks made to the BCC should address the BCC as a whole. Any person making, this is the part that Tony was asking about, excuse me, Commissioner Ball was asking about. Any person making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks, or who becomes boisterous, threatening, disruptive, or personally abusive, here's the key, such as to disrupt the meeting, may be requested to leave the meeting. And by disrupting the meeting, I don't mean standing in the back of the room, flipping the room off. That is actually allowed. Yes, so this is that.
Standing in the front of the room, blocking everybody's view, flipping you the bird or not, is problematic, but
Right.
back of the room.
The presiding officer does have the authority to preserve order in all meetings. This is what we came up with for, we'll call it the December 5th, 2023 rule. If you did not have the pleasure of attending that council meeting, we were Zoom bombed and it was horrible. The presiding officer has the authority to preserve order at all meetings. They may recess and or adjourn the meeting in the event of continued disruption. And to the extent allowed by law, the BCC may then reconvene the meeting in a separate room, provided that the public will still have the ability to view and listen to the reconvened meeting from the original meeting location. So in our new building, we have our council chambers, and down the hall behind it is our executive wing conference room. So if something was happening and you needed to get your business at hand done, didn't want to adjourn the meeting, but also could not continue to conduct it in the council chambers, you could call for a recess, go into that conference room, get yourself all set up, reconvene your meeting, as long as the people out in the council chambers could still watch and listen. That is how we came up with how to deal with the disrupt, because you're not going to have a cop at your meetings and ask them to escort this rowdy person out. And it just, we didn't want to put our chairs in a situation where they were having to try and make decisions like that. So this is what we came up with.
So if I can move through that, just to operationalize it, the people have the freedom to speak. But you also need to be able to get your work done. And so, we're gonna lean more into the First Amendment, being able to get up and speak and say your piece and everything like that. If things get unruly or something like that, and I've done this twice so far, it's good to go ahead and take a 10-minute recess. Okay, 10-minute recess, you just go your separate directions, you don't even go into the back room per se, you come back, And hopefully things have settled down. And what I would do is just warn folks that, hey, if, you know, if we can't get this meeting so that we can do our business in this meeting, we may need to adjourn to another location, in which case you can watch the meeting on these screens here. But we would like this to be something where you can be present to hear our deliberation in person. We're now going to take a recess for 10 minutes and come back, and I'm hoping we continue our meeting at that time. And so you go ahead and it could be during public comment. Somebody keeps yelling at you, don't sit down. That happened to me in a meeting. I said, you waited your standard your 3 minutes. The person had a response to that in the meeting. I took the gavel and I said, we are now, you are out of order. We need to stop now. The person had a response to that. I said, okay, we are now going into, and I took the gavel and I was getting ready to say, go into recess for 10 minutes. And the person looked at me and abruptly turned around and then went and sat down. So you have the ability, because you're managing the meeting, to just simply remove yourself from the situation. Okay, it's a way of de-escalation, right? Just remove yourself from the situation. You come back in after 10 minutes, and if it's still unruly, then you go ahead and you open up the record and you say, make the same statement I did, and hey, we're gonna continue this. We need you all to be quiet so we can do this. I'm sorry, this isn't working. We are now going to recess and we're going to continue the meeting in a separate room. You go into the separate room, as Jody just pointed out, when the meeting's over, if they're still out there, at that point, it becomes something for law enforcement to work on. If it's, you know, it's just a sit-in, that kind of thing, law enforcement will take care of it, but you all can leave through a different door. Does that make sense? So these things don't, you can get heated in the moment, but there is a logical way to de-escalate the situation and still do your business. Right? Does that answer your question, Stephen?
Oh, was that a question? It does.
You have cheese to wrap.
He's out of order.
Okay. Last section by name, written correspondence with boards, commissions, and committees. It's related to written correspondence, which is different than written public comments. Written public comments should be labeled as such when submitted. Correspondence directly related to a business item currently pending before the planning commission shall be reviewed by the staff liaison or city administrator for potential inclusion in the agenda packet as backup information similar to other agenda items. The revision history is literally just one line right now, but over time it'll get filled in by any amendments. These were adopted April 22nd, 2025 and are in immediate effect. Took a lot of the language from the city rules of procedure, which your original rules of procedure actually came from the council rules of procedures kind of worked over. So these shouldn't look too horribly different from what you're used to seeing. I did work with our staff liaisons, our clerk secretaries, the legislative affairs committee, Mayor Thomas, and the city attorney. Lots and lots of review. And I intend to review if and when we receive feedback from you and amend maybe a year from now, unless there's something that comes up that's like, ooh, we gotta fix that like right now. We also amended certain sections of the code that were in direct conflict with these rules of procedure. The last thing I'm going to mention is the Appendix A, which actually does apply to you. It's related to public hearings. The public hearing shall only be scheduled with the approval of city administrator or otherwise prescribed by city code or directed by city council. The Appendix A outlines the specific procedures. They are different than what you're used to seeing. So our chair and vice chair will definitely want to take a look at that Appendix A. Kind of get yourself familiar with the new process for public hearings. And I do have a script that I can give to you that your staff liaison can also kind of fill in the blanks because it says next is public hearing related to blank. So we will get that to you as well so that it follows this new order of business for public hearings. And that is the conclusion of our formal presentation, Chair. If there are any follow-up questions, Commissioner Lowe?
I have a couple questions on motions. When a person's going to make a motion, it needs to be very clear, concise, and said, not paraphrased.
Correct. There should be, all agenda bills should have a requested action section that should read what your motion would be. Move to approve, blah, 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 blah. What I've done for council, is we actually on our slideshow have what the requested action is. But I know you guys all have your iPads with your agendas in front of you, so it should be fairly easy for you to go from one agenda bill to the next to see that requested action. And again, they should be worded in such a way that that's how, and it's painful for council to have to read
Yeah.
the mile-long ordinance titles. But in some situations, I'm not allowed to paraphrase them, so they have to read that horribly long thing for the record. Technically, the presiding officer is also supposed to repeat the exact motion. That we don't really do at council because I don't want to make a council member say it and then make them mayor say it again.
What I do, so first, please don't motion something. Okay, that's it, I move to approve and then read the language that's there. When that happens, everybody should be reading along with the person making the motion. Let's make certain that it's read incorrectly. It's read into the record correctly. We add those words incorrectly, but it's read into the record correctly. And then the second is made. What I do then when I'm sharing is I say, motion is made by Councilmember Lowe, I'm sorry, by Commissioner Lowe, seconded by Commissioner Blair for the requested action on new business item X as shown on the screen. And so what you might do is say the motion was made and seconded for the requested action as shown on agenda bill, or however it is you number them, X, Y, Z. And then like that, you're referring to what she read or he read or they read. Does that make sense? Yeah, that's how I've gotten around it, because reading the long thing doesn't help. These things are supposed to help keep the meetings moving, and if you get too stuck in the weeds, you lose the reason why these rules exist, is to keep things predictable and keep things moving.
And I think when we're not following them, the things just get more and more lax.
What's that?
I think when we're not following them correctly, then things get more and more lax.
Yeah, and it comes down to whomever is chairing. So again, you want to rotate the chair, but when you're chairing, yeah, you need to maintain discipline, and everybody else on the commission needs to understand that. You're the friendly meeting manager, and you need to hold one another accountable to meet that, because you get new people in. It's one of the reasons why we're doing this roadshow, going out and meeting with everybody. Remember, leadership is not necessarily what you do when you're there, it's what you leave behind. And you need to make certain that the new people, when they come in, they see how you're behaving, and that they're gonna make that part of the culture of the body, the planning commission, which then some of you may run for council. Will become the stuff that goes on in council or mayor.
My second question is, if you miss a meeting, so you weren't present, but you watch it after the fact, when the next meeting, when you're voting on your minutes, should you abstain? Should you
No.
still vote?
No, I think you should still do it.
Even though you weren't present for
correct.
that meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then to follow up on what the mayor said, I also cringe when I hear people say so moved. Because that doesn't really tell me what you're actually moving to do. And then if you're gonna be doing, if you request an amendment to a motion, even if it seems super simple, I recommend that staff bring up a blank document, copy the motion onto the thing, and then literally live time, make the amendment so everybody is very clear. And if it is an amended motion, what I would recommend is that the presiding officer say, say it's moved, seconded, deliberated, amended, and the amendment passes. My recommendation is that the chair go back to the original motion and say, the motion on the floor is now, blah, 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 insert amendment, and then do the vote then, and then just say the original motion as amended has been passed, failed.
Commissioner Bolt.
It's been my belief that it's not the chair's sole responsibility to make sure the meetings are run appropriately. It's all our responsibility, so that if we notice that, this discussion's going sideways, that we make people aware of that.
It's called point of order.
Yes, it is. Point
You
of
can
order.
call,
I believe
anybody
that,
can call a point of order, even the clerk can call a point of order if, the mayor misses a section of the packet or.
Public comments.
I
and,
usually don't say point of order, I just say, Mayor, you forgot something, so
and the chair at that point has to
acknowledge
Address.
the point.
of order.
Yep.
And say, oh, yes, we did, or no, I believe we're still within the realms of the discussion.
Mhm. Yeah.
Whatever. So it's all our responsibility.
Absolutely. Okay. And now for something completely different. The mayor did mention that, City Hall is reopening soon. The ribbon cutting is scheduled for Monday, July 14th at 4 o'clock. You are all cordially invited to attend. You should have in your email a, Evite
Yes.
for that event. I realized the hard way that you have to start scrolling through the invitation to see the yes, no at the bottom. I thought it was like a cookie or something. I'm looking all over the screen for the yes, no. It's at the bottom once you start scrolling. Cookie. And then before your first official meeting in the new council chambers, the new chambers, I am hoping to schedule a faux meeting for us to do. This will give you an opportunity to set up your seating preference, to get used to the new technology, kind of get a feel for the space, figure out where the bathroom is, all that good stuff. So we're hoping to have that prior to your first meeting. And then any other open houses and such will be mentioned when we figure out dates and stuff. Thanks, Commissioner Walsh.
We're scheduled for a meeting on July 14th. Will that be our first meeting?
You want
Doubtful.
to have the first meeting and, no, council. will have
Sorry,
the first meeting
yeah.
here. Thanks for asking.
Hopefully the council will have their first meeting on the 15th of July if everything is up and running. And I don't feel like I'm gonna have a heart attack trying to run the AV equipment. But the liaisons are all gonna be getting trained, and then we'll train the trainer, and we'll get you guys in there, get you comfortable with where you're at. And I recommend the presiding officer sitting on one side or the other, so that you can
We'll show
see everybody.
We'll show you where to sit. One of the problems with where you're sitting right now is that, if Kelsey puts her flag up and you're looking this way, it's hard to see.
Yeah.
If in this room, I would be sitting where probably where Bob is, or where Kelsey is, so you can see everything. But, you'll sit on the far side so you can see the lobby, and we're telling all the, everybody that serves as chair to do that. It's sort of a thing in a lot of places where they sit right in the middle. The problem with sitting in the middle is, you're doing this, so you're all, if you're like a right-handed speaker, you're always looking this way and you're missing the people over here. So, yeah, it's, that's something else that we're gonna have, is the chair sit on one side, just up there. All right.
Okay, thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening. Planning commission.
Randomly vote.
That planning commission.
All right, because we had some technical difficulties at the beginning, we are going to go back to agenda item 4.1. For approval of the April 14th, 2025 minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the April 14th meeting?
I move that we approve the planning commission April 14th, 2025 minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Bach. Is there a second? Thank you, Commissioner Dawkins. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries unanimous. Moving to agenda item 4.2, approval of the April 28th, 2025. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move that we approve the planning commission meeting minutes of April 28th, 2025.
Thank you, Commissioner Bach. Is there a second? Thank you, Commissioner Lowe. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. The chair votes aye. All right, motion is approved. Okay, moving on now to agenda item 6.1, which is the first of two public hearings. Yes,
On the agenda, we have 5.2.
oh, that's right. Thank you so much, Commissioner Bach. Okay, item 5.2, the Walmart sign variance, and Amy is going to talk to us about that.
Thank you. This is not something that the planning commission normally sees on their agenda. The city staff, we process variances and they go to a hearing examiner. However, in this case, in our sign code, there's something interesting in there, and it says that sign variances need to be forwarded to planning commission. You're not a recommending body, but we just wanted to make it a point that we forwarded the variance that Walmart submitted to you. It is in your packet. Real quick, what they're asking for is to update the signs on the Walmart building. They're currently over their allowed total site signage, and they would like to stay over their total amount, but have less than what they currently have. And so this will, it's variance, the community development director makes a recommendation to hearing examiner, and that will be carried forward to.
Commissioner Lowe?
That's kind of a question. Reading that, and I did see how, it's over now. So did the code for that change since they had it and now? Is that why it's over?
It didn't change. The total site signage is the same as it was before, but they had a development agreement. They had it was a part of a bigger plan. There was a binding site plan involved. And so when that development agreement was done at that time, the site design was approved. That agreement says that they would follow that agreement for 2 years, and then anything after that would need to follow current code. And so that's where we're at right now.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? No? Okay. And then there's no requested action, so this was informational only.
Informational only. We want to be able to make sure that we're following process, and if the hearing examiner asks us if we follow this process, it has been brought to the commission.
All righty, sounds good. Well, thank you. Appreciate the information. Now moving on to agenda item 6.1 for the first of two public hearings. This one for the commute trip reduction code amendments, and Anita is going to do the presentation for us.
Yes, good evening, commissioners. Good to see everyone in person. I was a little sick last night. So, so much better.
You know why?
Bad one. I was sick for so long. Just gonna get rid of it. Sorry, my computer's really slow. Oh, it's okay.
All right, I'll go ahead and formally open the public hearing.
Thank you. I'm here tonight to present the public hearing for the commute trip reduction code amendments. The Washington State CTR law requires employers to implement CTR plans to help their employees reduce the number and length of drive-alone commute trips they make to their work site. City is in the process of adopting its 2025-2029 CTR plan and concurrently proposing amendments to chapter 22.88 commute trip reduction to comply with state law. And then I also wanted to mention, Commissioner Bolt had a great question last time. He asked, why are the schools in the area not included as a major employer or required to do the CTR requirements? And that is because they are not considered a major employer. So major employer is defined as a private or public employer, including state agencies, that employs 100 or more full-time employees at a single work site who begin their regular workday between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. on at least 2 weekdays for at least 12 continuous months. So that's the reason why the schools aren't listed on CTR.
The goals of the CTR program, next slide, please. Thank you. The goals of the CTR program are to reduce the commuter drive alone rate to major work sites and the average vehicle miles traveled by employees. Also to reduce congestion, to reduce consumption of fossil fuels, and also to improve air quality. Next slide, please. Staff presented the introduction to the planning commission on April 14th. Planning commission did not have any changes to the proposed amendments or CTR plan and directed staff to draft the staff reported scheduled public hearing. The CTR plan is required to be updated every 4 years. And this update to the CTR plan must be adopted by June 30th of 2025. The proposed code changes are adding a definition for drive alone commute trip in the CTR code, updating references to the 2025-2029 CTR plan, and then revising the CTR ordinance to require affected employees to choose at least 5 implementing measures from the provided list, including one for each category. So the new code update provides these options. Before it was just limited. It was a requirement on what you have to do. This kind of gives you some different options. The 2025-2029 City of Monroe CTR plan has been approved by PSRC and WashDOT, and now we just have to go through the local adoption process. The CTR plan consists of the following sections: benefits of CTR, performance targets, service and strategies, alignment with plans, and then there's an engagement section. The city received no public comments on the code amendments. The recommended action tonight is moved to direct staff to draft findings of fact and conclusions of law, recommending that the Monroe City Council approve the proposed amendments to chapter 22.88 MMC, community trip reduction, as required by state law. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Does anybody have any comments or questions for staff? No? All right. So moving on to the public testimony. We do not have anyone signed up for public testimony tonight. However, we still do need to formally move to open the citizen portion of the public hearing. So do I have a motion?
Move to open the public comment portion of the public hearing.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Chair votes aye. All right, and we do not have anyone sign up for public testimony, so do I have a motion to close the citizen portion of the public hearing?
I make a motion to close the public comment portion of the public hearing.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. And chair votes aye, so motion passes. And if there is no further commission deliberation, then I would like to ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
I move that we close the public hearing.
Thank you, Commissioner Bob. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Walsh. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Chair votes aye, so that concludes the public hearing. Is there a motion to direct staff in accordance? Can we get that back up on the screen just to help? Oh, thank you.
I will work on that.
It's also in our packet, so, all right, Commissioner Black.
I move to direct staff to draft findings of fact and conclusions of law, recommending that the Monroe City Council approve the proposed amendments to chapter 22.88 MMC commute trip reduction as required by state law.
Is there a second? All right, thank you. There's moved in second to direct staff to draft the findings of fact and conclusions of law in accordance to what is in our packet. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. And the chair votes aye, so that is approved 7-0. All right, thank you, that. Moving on to item 6.2, which is our second public hearing for unit lot subdivisions code amendments. And Anita is going to do that as well for us. Yes. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I moved to open the public hearing.
And is there a second?
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Chair votes aye.
We got quick minutes to change the PowerPoint, so
Oh, yes, yes, sorry.
Got a bit of a lag here.
No problem. The presentation doesn't start until the PowerPoint is ready, so you're good.
almost there. Sorry, my computer's got a crazy late today. Almost there. Oh, yes, thank you. There it is. Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Yes, I'm presenting the second public hearing on unit lot subdivisions code amendments. Next slide, please. During the 2023 regular session, the Washington State Legislature passed ESBB 5258, which requires all cities to include provisions for unit lot subdivisions. Unit lot subdivisions allow a portion of the parent lot to be divided into unit lots that don't meet the full requirements of the underlying zone, but allow for fee simple ownership of housing units. So an example would be creating ownership lots under a townhome development. Monroe regulates subdivisions in MMC chapter 22.68, and the new law requires the addition of a unit lot subdivision section to chapter 22.68. And this is an example that I've shown before. This one shows the parent lot with a townhome development, as indicated by the unit lots. And in this particular example, there's a common area as well to this development. Next slide, please. An introduction was given to the planning commission on March 10th. Staff brought forth the draft ULS code for the planning commission's consideration on April 16th, or I'm sorry, April 14th. The planning commission did not have any changes to the proposed amendments and directed staff to draft the staff report and schedule a public hearing. A unit lot subdivision creates new lots, much like a typical subdivision, except a ULS allows flexibility application of dimensional standards. So as discussed before, those lots can be smaller. They don't necessarily have to meet the minimum lot widths or lot coverage. Those are flexible. In the ULS, development as a whole is the parent lot, which conforms to the zoning dimensional standards, while individual unit lots are not required to. And under this development, unit lots can also be called the child lots, just for clarification, parent-child. So these are individual sellable legal lots of record with their own tax or parcel identification number. Stated before, this is required by state law. The deadline for this code amendment is June 30th of this year, and it will follow the same process as short plat. So as discussed before, this is preliminary, it would be a preliminary unit lot subdivision. It would go through the construction phase, and then it would go through a final plat or final unit lot subdivision. And once it's recorded, then those become their individual lots with the tax numbers. Next slide, please. Sections of the MMC to be amended is that we're proposing to add a section to 22.68.0445, which is the unit lot subdivision, to chapter 22.68 subdivisions. Amending sections 22.12.120, 22.12.130, and 22.12.210. And this is just adding definitions that are associated with the new unit lot subdivision section of the code. Also amending chapter 22.84 permit processing to include the permitting process for the ULS, which as mentioned before, is the same as a short plat process. Next slide, please. And no public comments were received on this. code amendment as well. The recommended action tonight is moved to direct staff to draft planning commission findings of fact and conclusions of law, recommending that the Monroe City Council approve the proposed code amendments to chapter 22.68 MMC subdivisions, chapter 22.12 MMC definitions, and chapter 22.84 MMC permit processing. And as before, I'm happy to answer the question.
And then questions from commissioners? Commissioner Dawkins?
And I've asked this a couple times, but like with the sewer, like, can they have a bigger pipe going through where a bunch are connected and then have one connection at
So,
road or?
yeah, so, for this particular development, since it is, the same as a short plat, they do have to have their own connection. But a different development like a Jose Family, say, a townhome development that's not individually created lots, then that's correct. They would just have the 1 meter, the one connection. But because these are separate,
But townhomes can be sold separately too, but they have connected sewer, right? Or they have the same sewer.
yes,
So
if they're,
can we have these, have that? Because
not,
I've been running into that as
Yeah.
being a problem with other,
yeah.
cities
Requiring
requiring that.
Unfortunately, not with this process, that they would have to have their own connection.
And why?
Because they're gonna have their own individual lots, so. That's just, it's creating an own lot, so they need to have their own utilities, own connection for that particular lot. But I do see your question, and that's something that, we can talk about further with our engineering department, but for engineering standards right now, that's the requirement.
Yeah, really talking about how small the lots are. Or like where, because how would you, I know, I just keep bringing it up because I've been asking around with some other or like developers and other cities on what's that they, what do they look for in code, and that's.
The utilities and having separate.
Utilities for everything is great besides sewer, because if they could do it the same thing as a development where it's hard to like. On the land, because if you have 4 sewers going to the property, which is kind of possible with.
And then, yeah, kind of like we talked about before too, all the utilities would be like easements. So, that may make it a little better, but yeah, as you were saying, like with, the smaller lot, can be a little tighter to get those utilities in.
Or not,
Or,
so then it doesn't make.
true, yeah.
Like,
So, yeah, and so this gives you the process to do that, but like you said, if the property doesn't, allow that, if it's too small, then maybe it won't work on this property. But it is an option to try to get, the smaller lots, but yeah, there can be other restrictions besides that.
That's a very good question. Thank you for bringing it up. Because with sewer, it's one utility that doesn't have its own separate meter. The rates are based on water use, not what goes down the sewer. So that, yeah. It's a good question.
Yeah, and I will talk to our engineering department to see if, under the new standards, if there's any possibility to. And then at a certain point, maybe we can amend the code to allow some of that, but for right now, for this particular process, it is gonna be the same as a short plat. There's no, yeah, there's just no. It's gonna, same thing, they're gonna have to do frontage improvements just as well. There's no deviation from that. There's only deviation from the bulk requirements, which is the setbacks, lot coverage, lot width, but at this point, there's no deviations for those types of things.
Commissioner Law?
On a lot subdivision, each lot is individually owned by somebody,
Correct.
not like an ADU, so it kind of makes more sense to me that you would have them all separate. Because if I own a lot, I purchase a lot, I don't want to be now sharing with somebody who also owns another lot. So it kind of makes sense that they're all their own meters.
Yeah, and that's, we had another developer in town that kind of did that too, where everything is on 1 meter and they went after the fact and did the condo. And that's turning out to be kind of an issue as well, because then they have to create an HOA for just like 3 5 units, I think it's 3 to 5 units for some of them. So it's becoming more of an issue. So I think this, I mean, I know what you're saying for site,
But the size is for smaller,
yes.
smaller lots to be able to put more in it, and then if they have setbacks like that, then they can do it anyway, so it just, it doesn't help our development. That's what I was.
Yeah, so there wouldn't be additional setback from the easement, so the utility easement's usually like 10 feet. So you can have the structure up to the easement. Yeah, there's not like a separate setback from the easement. But that's a really good point, and I will talk to Richard about that, to see if there's any way around it, but for now, when you're creating your own lot, you do have to have your own separate connection. But, and so there's like pros and cons for both ways. Like you said, it's if you're have your own lot, it's nice to have your own connection. You have to consult with somebody else about, the water and sewer usage and other utilities and stuff like that.
Commissioner Ball?
I know it already in the city of Monroe, my next door neighbors, two of them share a sewer line that then rides out to their individual homes in the city of Monroe.
I
And,
do also,
what's that?
I do also, with
Yeah.
the neighbor. And it is an issue.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's.
And if I step on the floor.
Yeah, it's.
I remember doing in 1980s reading different articles on affordable housing, and that's one of the things they recommended to help cut down on the cost of building homes.
No, that's a great point, and we'll definitely bring that up, and if there's something that we can change in the future, yes, definitely. I'm all for trying to get, more.
And I'm not suggesting that we hold this up.
Yes, yes.
This we should go forward with, a full support of that, and just raising those other issues for future discussion.
No, those are great points, thank you.
Commissioner Blank?
Yeah, I guess I was just gonna ask if there was a way that we can see if people are or aren't gonna use this, like, let's say, I think we're gonna have the numbers for once this goes into effect, and if people in a year still aren't using it, because we found there was something else that we already have on the books that nobody has used, and so it's like, I wonder why. And if you guys have pre-application meetings with people or something, and you're starting to see this as a barrier, if you could bring it back forward to let us know that, because since we were worried that it's gonna be an issue, you might see if it really is or not, and be able to let us know, and then we could try to make sure we're making amendments to it.
Okay, definitely. Yes, I totally agree with that. I feel like we can get this process out, hopefully it'll bring people in, but if there's barriers to that, we can find out in the process, like you said, if nobody's coming in for applications, we have to go back to the drawing board to see if we can make some modifications to the code, but I like that.
Thank you. Right, are there any additional questions? No? All right, then we'll move on to the public testimony, and again, we do not have anyone who is signed up for public comment. However, we do still have to make a formal motion to open and close it. So do I have a motion to open the citizen portion of the public hearing?
I move to open the public testimony portion of the public hearing.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
All right, all in favor, vote, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Chair votes aye. So motion passes 7-0. And then we have no public comments, so is there a motion to close the public or the citizen portion of the public hearing?
I make a motion to close the public testimony portion of the hearing.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. Chair votes aye, so motion passes 7-0. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you, Commissioner Blair. Is there a motion or a second? Second. Thank you, Commissioner Lowe. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. The chair votes aye. The motion passes 7-0, and that concludes the public hearing. So moving forward, is there a motion?
I move to direct staff to draft findings of fact and conclusions of law, recommending that the Monroe City Council approve the proposed amendments to chapter 22.68 MMC subdivisions as requested by ESSB 5258, and minor text amendments to chapter 22.12 MMC definitions, and chapter 22.84 permit processing.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, vote say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Chair votes aye, so motion passes 7-0. Moving on to old business, agenda item 7.1. Adopt the findings of fact, proposed accessory dwelling unit and permanent processing code amendments, and Amy will present that.
Thank you. There is a small presentation. I'll get started without it. It just really is the motion, so I can get started without that. So on April 14th of 2025, planning commission held a public hearing for accessory dwelling unit code amendments and permit processing code amendments relating to House Bill 1337, and planning commission moved to have staff draft findings of fact and conclusions of law. That draft is included in your packet tonight for your review. And we're here to we hopefully adopt those findings of fact. If there's any question on this?
Any questions? All right, do I have a motion?
I move that,
Oh, sorry, Commissioner Dawkins.
In this document, it says physical unit and the other one's parent. Well, those are totally different things, right? They are.
okay, I move that the planning commission adopt these findings of fact and conclusions and authorize the chair of the planning commission to sign the findings of fact on behalf of the commission and recommend that the Monroe City Council approve the amendments to MMC Title 22 Unified Development Regulations as required by House Bill 1337 to ease the barriers for construction of accessory dwelling units.
Thank you, Commissioner Blair. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Bach. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Chair votes aye, so a motion passes 7-0. All right, moving on to agenda item 8, discussion by commissioners and staff. We'll go ahead and start with Commissioner Petrino.
Great meeting, lots of stuff. Good job, staff. Good job, Leanne, filling in for. Good job. And I look forward to the new, to try out our new planning commission chambers.
Really good try to get it first.
And we'll let the
How
council,
do we just show up?
we'll let the council use it.
I hadn't thought about it until you brought it up.
Okay, Commissioner Walsh.
Not much. Well, I'm excited that the races are in town and because it's bringing in a lot of new business for the downtown area. So a lot of new faces this weekend.
Thank you. Commissioner Lowe.
I think we had good discussion tonight. I liked our presentation on what was given earlier, and thank you to staff for everything that you guys bring forward to us, and always so concise and easy to read, and thank you.
Commissioner Blair.
Over the last 2 weeks, I participated in a webinar from the Puget Sound Regional Council on additional dwelling units, and they had Kitsap County there and City of Seattle. And we had talked here about some of the pre-approved plans, and like the City of Seattle, they have some pre-approved plans. They don't own them, but they like basically are like they have them on their website. People get a hold of the vendor or the consultant, whoever who made them, and pay them for them, but they are just saying that these are already pre-approved. You can't change anything really on them. And then Kitsap County, they actually, like 5 cities banded together to split the cost, which I thought would be something more like Monroe would maybe look at doing, because it is like $100,000 to get a few plans out there. And the other thing I realized from that is they're not getting, people aren't just all coming in and getting these pre-approved plans. So that's not like a huge factor. I know that's something we had talked about, but it doesn't seem to be a huge factor of people actually
you putting ADUs in is coming in with these pre-approved plans, because a lot of people want to make changes to them themselves. And yeah, I guess just joining a coalition like they had with Kitsap County sounded smart. So I don't know if the city of Monroe's already talked to other similar sized cities, that would be interested in going in, that would all have the same rules, for the codes that they'd have to hit. But that was really interesting. And, they are seeing a huge uptick in when they've looked, Seattle loosened their laws on the ADUs. Prior to this, and they have seen them double like every year in the last 4 years, so. That did seem to help. But that's about all that I have this week.
Thank you. Commissioner Ball?
I'd like to thank staff, you do a wonderful job, very professional and polished. And, I thank you, I think that's one of the reasons why I think so fun. That will, because the information is there and it's clean. Thank you.
I will just also add to my thanks for staff for the information and the presentations tonight and the little adjustments for just the procedures and how the meetings are run. It'll take a little getting used to, but we'll get there. And so I appreciate it. And I also appreciate my fellow commissioners because for the most part, we do a pretty good job. We have a few little hiccups where we maybe get a little too chatty. And so that will be things that are coming to rein in just a little bit here and there, but for the most part, I think we do a pretty great job of keeping things in order and moving forward. So just thank you to everyone. And the weather has been beautiful. And I know that the Kareem Park is really close to being done, if not already. Is there a date set? Do you know?
I don't think there's a specific.
Not yet, okay. I bet a date is coming for the ribbon
It's
coming.
close, though.
So, because I was just trying to find like the, not the pavement, but the bottom is
The
in. It's,
surface.
yes, the surface is in, so it's probably just around the corner. So keep your eyes peeled and probably your emails for that, because it'll be open soon. My kids are gonna wanna be there, so. Yeah, that's it. So Commissioner Dawkins.
Yeah, I just want to echo, thank you all, you guys are awesome, and, good job. Today for all the switches. I feel like we run really smoothly. Hannah was saying that we have there's a powwow on the 25th. I think I'm gonna go. I would like to see what our local, native, people that live here do and, learn more about that, and that's on the 25th at 1.
It's at the high school, correct?
Yeah, it's fine.
Anita, do you have anything to?
Just wanted to mention that tomorrow we have a presentation meeting for Chick-fil-A. Proposing to go where the old Red Robin is, so we'll see.
Sorry, that's a drive-through.
We're the old Red Robin.
Right.
They're planning, planning drive-through, like those kind of, I don't know if you know the Everett ones, there's like two canopy.
I'm sorry.
They're covered.
Chick-fil-A.
I wasn't sure what you said.
The drive-through.
Oh,
is a
sorry,
me-
Chick-fil-A,
I'm
sorry.
The drive-through is a mess. Oh, my God.
Yeah, we're gonna make sure that, they can meet all our regulations, obviously, they're gonna need a traffic report, and they're gonna have to, probably change maybe, location of the driveway. But yeah, we're gonna make sure that it doesn't cause too much, traffic on your. So we'll see. That's all I have.
Right, Amy?
They're gonna demo the existing building, they're not using.
Yeah, we
existing.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. That's quite an investment. But they go forward.
It's a free.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we'll see.
Amy?
I also attended the pre-approved plans seminar last Friday and it was really interesting and I got the same things out of it I think that you did. And we will haven't been back and I was actually on vacation and I signed in because I wanted to watch it. And so I haven't had a chance to bring that back. I don't know if you watched it or not. We haven't chatted about it with staff yet. And then it's not my project, but I saw on Facebook that Wendy's is
Getting their fencing
The
or
fencing, right, too.
Getting, it's me, project, that's why I'm looking
They
at
were
her.
just, yeah, they were just waiting on, building permits, and I think it might have got approved, because I know that we submitted, so, but not yet.
I'm not sure that's the case.
They do have their civils though, they can start the groundwork, but, their building permits are probably a little bit coming forth.
So Wendy's is planned, if you don't know, it's planned to go in the Fred Meyer parking lot,
Oh, okay.
sort of behind not the Fred Meyer gas station, but the other gas station.
What are called in the car wash.
Yeah, those are like Chase, yeah.
Like it's a highway too.
That's all I have.
Lance?
I also attended the pre-approved plan ADU, and then another city that was on there was Renton that has done that, and was thinking about, I was not aware of that Kitsap County group. They actually, it's interesting, they have a consultant that works with them. But one of the thoughts is our building official there is a group or in the region with the building folks, and that might be a good way to get that discussion, because these pre-approved plans are really more about the building code than anything, so I was gonna bring that up with Stacy Criswell, who's our building official, to see if that's something that maybe we could get that discussion started with that group. But yeah, it would be a good tool for the city.
Leanne?
Just a reminder that Hannah is out for the next month or so, so if you need to reach out to staff, you can reach out to Kate or myself or anybody else. And I will probably be the secretary for your next meeting as well, so we get to do this all again.
And since that concludes our business, there are no objections. We will adjourn the meeting. Nope, not anymore, apparently.